They lost to the Colts. Now it's just a little less crazy because Matt Ryan came back.
I think it's a lot of less crazy.
Yeah, I was watching the game thinking these are just two NFL teams, right?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of less crazy. I think you would have had to fire him if he would have lost to the kid. And I think it's pretty clear, and I think Jeff deserves some credit for either coming in and saying Matt's starting, or maybe just asking Parks Frazier and Reggie Wayne, the guys on the staff, they're like, you got to get this fucking guy out of here. Right. Get Matt Ryan back in the game.
But he's the one that has the kind of the pull to tell Jim Irsay, we're not going with your guy anymore.
Well, and to me, that's why I do not blame Jim Irsay. We've talked about this for I can't listen to anything coming out of Frank's mouth. Not that I have anything against him personally, but I don't take his football opinions seriously anymore. And Jeff came in and probably looked at him and said, we're starting Matt Ryan. He says, you do whatever you want, Jeff.
Yeah.
So I thought it was a pretty good little curveball. All of a sudden, Matt Ryan, I was watching Red Zone, and it was the end of the Bills Vikings game, was just about to go to overtime, or maybe it was still they were driving, and Siciliano chimed on and said, rumors, or not rumors, but we saw the video of Matt Ryan has taken all the reps in pregame warmups, and I knew right away. I'm like, okay, Matt Ryan's playing this game. And then I thought, oh, this thing could get interesting because the Raiders aren't losing to that guy. Sam Ehlinger stinks. Matt Ryan is a diminishing player, but he's fucking an MVP. I mean, he can still play. You watched him today. He looked well rested and he looked fine.
Yeah.
But you lost to Jeff Saturday. And after the game, I forwarded you an Instagram. Edgerrin James was there and got him on his Instagram. And you could tell Jeff was a little uncomfortable because Edgerrin was kind of trying to talk shit for him. They all said you didn't deserve this shit. And
you think Edge would have made the trip if the game was in Houston?
Probably not.
Game was in Vegas. Edge.
Honestly, he might have just come. Is it crazy to think that a bunch of former Colts came with Jim?
No, it's not. It's very possible. Jeff Saturday, John, beat Josh McDaniels today. Jeff Saturday, whose last big personnel move was giving up fantasy control of his fantasy team. He had to give up his fantasy team. You can't actively be in a fantasy team.
You know who took it over?
Eric Decker. Eric Decker took it over. So,
guy, he was in a fantasy league.
Right. No one's talking about that.
He was in a fantasy league with all these other guys that used to play in the NFL. He had to give up his fantasy team.
Yeah.
Because he got the opportunity to be a head coach in the NFL.
Guys, I got to go.
A week ago, he was the coach, leader, GM of a fantasy team. Very serious.
Probably Devontae on his team.
Is it crazy to think the buy-in was $20,000 with the group he's
probably
playing?
Humongous, yeah.
Who knows? He had to give it up because he was literally coaching a NFL game. And he gave it to just some other former famous player. Eric Decker's like, yeah, I'll take it over, bro. What's my buy-in? Maybe his team was good and it was an easy transition. That's pretty insane. It's funny. We're being sarcastic, but when you just say that out loud, of course that
his last team that he coached was a fantasy team. I thought today, and I meant it when I said this to you, and I mean it. If I were Jim Irsay, I would probably hate Josh McDaniels. And I know it's not good to hold hate in your heart, John, but sometimes you can just take some joy in hating a few people. And I would, to me, beating Josh McDaniels, who had taken my job and then bailed on me to not even take another head coaching job, just to stay after I had to hire his defensive coordinator, who actually turned out to be pretty good. And then to beat him at his place on me with, they are 3-7, I think, the Bears. But to beat him at his place with Jeff Saturday, that would be one of my finest hours as an owner. After everyone spent a week shitting on me and telling it, I think that would be one of the greatest days of my life if I were Jim Irsay today.
I would say that Jim Irsay, the second half of that game and when it ended, no one's more happy than Jim Irsay. Not even Jeff Saturday, right? Is Jim Irsay the most happy guy today involved in the Colts?
Absolutely, because Jeff Saturday's been around the league long enough to know that he could still lose the rest of his games, right?
Yeah.
He's got to get to work tomorrow. For Jim, he's already feels like he won. We were losing with the other guy. We won with this guy. This was a good move.
I don't know if I'm expecting to wake up. I mean, it's, Pacific Standard Time, about 10:08. If I wake up and either Nathaniel Hackett or Josh McDaniels has lost their job, I'm not going to be – it's not going to be one of those, wow, didn't see that coming. But I do think we crossed the line of Josh McDaniels where it's all on the table moving forward. I mean, you forwarded me the thing, and it was probably going viral on Twitter. I mean, Derek cried after the game. I mean, cried because it kind of feels like he knows you're fucked, Derek.
It felt to me like he knew it was he won't be on this team next year. That's how it felt to me.
You forwarded me Josh Norris tweeted out the stats of his throws downfield.
Yeah.
He completed one pass downfield of over 10 yards in the air.
10 air yards, I think it was.
Now, I get Waller's on IR, Renfro's on IR, but to just suck this bad with a quarterback that just had a pretty good year and it's weird. He didn't get a true Matt Stafford, Kyler Murray contract, but he is making $40 million a year. And to be 2-7, when your team does have some talent, I first blame Josh. He's the head coach. The team they just feel off. They've blown leads. But it feels like Derek's having a pretty underwhelming season, given the pressure. Devontae had some comments last week of even from double coverage, throw me the fucking ball. I mean, he didn't say it he doesn't speak cocky. He's pretty smooth at it. I wonder if they've fallen off a little bit. Wouldn't it be human nature of
what do
they
you
were
mean?
BFFs?
And
you finally get to each other, and it does feel like their careers. I mean, Devontae got paid, but it's a disastrous decision for Davante Adams, who was one of the most famous players in the league on one of the most powerful brands in the league, and he leaves. And he's in obscurity and irrelevancy beside people making fun of him.
Yeah, and I think part of the reason it's so disastrous is not just that this isn't working this year. It's that the organization has not shown the ability to figure it out. So firing the coach is the easy part if that's what ends up happening, or getting rid of the quarterback is the easy part. What do you do next? Do you end up drafting second? You take CJ Stroud? Cool, maybe he's a star.
Do you think, though, I know they're second right now, if you had to put some money on where they picked,
I'd say 6 or 7.
Yeah. They're more likely to be 5 to 8 than they are 2 or 3, I would say.
Yeah, but
they do keep losing. So
given that Derek post game, maybe things are extremely weird for them. Do they not respect? I know, was it Brandon Marshall that went on the thing about Josh McDaniels is not a leader this week?
I know some of these things now.
Was that on Instagram?
You're talking Brandon Marshall, the linebacker, right? Or the wide receiver.
I thought it was the receiver. Didn't really watch the clip, but I saw a lot of people tweeting about it. But I don't know, John. They're 2-7. It could only get weirder. I think Mark Davis's Raiders organization is a wild organization, right? It is not a button-down operation. You hear the stories of just the way things work internally. It's not. I don't think it's particularly impressive from everything you hear. So I just Devontae Adams signed up for the whole, yeah, I know. Somebody tweeted me today, why does John hate the Raiders? I would love to hear the story. You want to give the 10-second story, the 15-second version?
I don't hate the Raiders. I just think I enjoy trolling them.
Yeah, but it just explained to people
Mark
who are
Davis
new
and
here.
Mark Bedane got me fired from the radio show for talking shit when they were a winless team. They were terrible.
John was hosting the Raiders postgame show on radio. Just everybody take a moment to think about that happened for a period of time.
Yeah,
John
hosted Raiders postgame. One time they were 0-10.
Yeah,
and I tweeted out the rest of their schedule, the remaining 6 games. I said 0-16 is on the table. The Chiefs, the Niners, and within 10 minutes, I get a call. I didn't pick it up, but Mark Bedane ripping me, the former president of the Raiders, for tweeting out that they might go 0-16. Guy, they were 0-10. So it wasn't this wasn't in August, this team's really going to. They were 0-10. 0-10. Now they ended up going 3-3.
Was that the week did they win that Thursday night?
They beat Thursday night the Chiefs, but
Muddy.
but it just their mindset is just so low level, and that Obviously, Mark Bedane ended up losing a lot of money for Mark Davis by giving a bunch of money that the city of Oakland didn't even deserve, just randomly to him. That's not even no here nor there. But you and I were uniquely equipped to up close and personal, and we just got to see the ins and outs. And we've always said, like, Mark Davis personally, like, just when you talk to him, he's very friendly and nice guy. But I also think they get very, very sensitive on their brand. And it's one thing to, like, your team has just historically sucked in my adult life. It can just always suck. So people aren't taking unnecessary shots when you stink. People aren't going out of the realm, like out of their way to make fun of the Lions. They just make fun of the Lions because they stink. People like Yankee fans get mad at the Yankees because the standard's high, but they're not taking shots at, like, you know, it's just different. And I think the Raiders fall under the category of like the Lions and the Browns. They get so sensitive when everyone talks about their losing. It's like, guys, you always lose. Like, you create the losing. And
remember when we tried to get credentials for the John Gruden press conference?
We were denied. No. Greg Papa was denied as well, though.
Greg Papa was also denied. Yeah, I mean, that to me is like the Devontae. He signed up for the whole thing. It wasn't just Derek. It wasn't just Josh McDaniels. It's just nothing is ever easy for this organization. Ever.
He did leave Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
After back-to-back MVPs.
Now, would Aaron want to come join him next year?
Brady?
NFL and CBS tweets that Jeff Saturday became the first coach since at least 1950 to tweet that a team looks horrible, then beat them within the next 2 weeks after never having coached at the college or pro level before. So
see, this type stuff, if I would have tweeted that when I was associated with the Raiders, they would have flown off the handle. It's like, no, guys, you just lost to a coach who tweeted last week, you look horrible, and had a fantasy football team. That's you. That's not me. I'm allowed to tweet that, you fucking losers. Like, stop losing. I've never seen a team. Guy, I picked them to make the playoffs, and they're 2-7. The Bears have more wins. The Jags have more wins. Well, of course they do. The Jags beat them. How do they always suck? They get a coach that I was like, I don't know why. I'm just like, oh, I bet Josh McDaniels is going to be good this time around. He's fucking terrible. They get Devontae Adams in the prime of his career, who probably beside Tyreek and like Justin Jefferson, there's no way he wouldn't go to every team and be like the best offensive player. Niners too. And they suck. I mean, they suck. Lost to the Colts. When I was watching that game day, it was a little surreal. You just kept, because they showed a lot of Saturday, right?
Yeah.
It's like, this is kind of crazy.
On the sideline.
Yeah. And honestly, I thought he was pretty, they kind of did a montage toward the end of like him doing some things, some high fives, like talking to Matty Ice. Honestly, I thought he handled himself pretty well.
Yeah, I watched his post-game locker room thing. Like, what can he really do other than to say, like, yeah, I mean, I got the job. And nice meeting everybody. Shout out to all you guys for working hard.
They give him the game ball?
They had to have, but I saw Jim Irsay he made some. I couldn't watch the whole thing because Irsay started talking, and I didn't know who he was giving the game ball to somebody else. But if I wake up Monday, if you're listening to this after the fact and Josh McDaniels has been fired, I will tell you, I will be a little. I won't be surprised if this makes sense, but it will be a shocking thing.
Well, I don't think he wants to look for another coach, right?
Yeah, to me, he would have to know that like Charles Woodson would
Harbaugh
take the job. I mean, Jim Harbaugh would take the job. I really do believe.
What if he did that and tried that, and Charles was just the coach?
John, I bet it crossed his mind last year. Like, why could I just? Maybe Howie Long would just do it.
Well, Howie Long would not do it.
I'm not saying that he would. I'm just saying that Mark Davis, his ideal world would be Eric Allen would just come coach the Raiders. It'd just be somebody he knows. Because think about that organization. If they can avoid going outside, they don't go outside, right?
Yeah.
He just wants somebody to.
Well, remember last year?
He's not a hands-off owner when it comes to his coaches.
Well, no. He went in the locker room today. Someone forwarded me a tweet. That
I'm sure he yelled at Josh.
This is one thing that I would push back on, and I don't understand quite why he didn't go to this well. Remember last year, one of the stories is like, Jim Harbaugh wants to talk to him, and they like really weren't that interested. Like Mark wasn't that interested in Jim Harbaugh. That feels like a mistake because it'd be humanly impossible for Jim Harbaugh. they wouldn't be 2-7. Now I don't know if they'd be 7-2,
Why
but
would that
they
be
would
the
not
case?
suck. Big
Jim
personality.
doesn't
He
kiss
gets
the ring.
Yeah, it's a little easier to boss Josh around when he's trying to prove himself. Like Jim ain't coming in there and like taking orders from Mark. Like Jim's not talking to Mark post game after a tough loss, right? Jim's not talking to anybody.
Well, he's
Most
not
coaches aren't.
talking, John, but I don't think Mark. I think Mark like, why do we suck? Why do you suck? Why does our offense suck? Like,
Well, I think
Mark,
I think
like a real
I think
conversation.
he's yelling.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, it's like I don't think he's in there like just asking for reasonable explanations. I think he's in there airing his grievances based on his 2 cents on the play they ran on 3rd down and 1. You know what I mean? Stuff that owners generally don't talk to their coaches about immediately after games.
Yeah, I think he's one of the worst owners in sports. I mean, I don't really think it's arguable. This isn't personal. I don't give him any credit for Vegas. I mean, Jerry Jones and the league led that thing. The league would give anything. I mean, they're clearly booting Dan Snyder out. I think Mark they'll want to get a hold of this franchise. And it's a disastrous franchise. Like they've had some moments, like they've made the playoffs a couple times in the last 5 years. Those are the only 2 times they've made the playoffs, as Vic Tafer tweeted, in the last 2 decades. I mean, they have consistently sucked in the internet era. I mean, just sucked. It's really crazy. And then when we all kind of agreed, I think the Raiders are going to be pretty good. Like it wasn't just Raider fans saying it. It wasn't just like football diehards saying it. It was like, I think the Raiders are going to have a good team. They are 2-7. Like, think about it. Like,
not just 2-7, like blown a 17-point lead
3 times.
3 times, only happened twice. What was the stat?
Well, it's happened 5 times in the history of the franchise. This year, it's happened 3 times.
Yeah. Blown out by the Saints, who
lost to Saturday.
Today. Lost to Saturday. Rich Gannon tweeted, John, bad loss! Exclamation point.
Look at the first comment.
Are you interested in coaching? Was the first reply.
Well, would it shock you if he just if he did fire Josh, you've convinced me he would probably interview someone like that he knows. Because what did he do with Gruden? And he was comfortable with
It's
Gruden.
a weird dynamic with Mark because he wants it to be somebody he knows, but he also really wants it to be a big name. From what I've heard, like that's really important. He wants.
Well, Josh was a pretty big name for him.
But it's
right?
why Rich Bisaccia. It's one of the reasons Rich didn't have a chance because Mark really wanted a big name. You're right, Josh. That's part of what would make it shocking to me. I think if Monday morning I woke up, is like Josh McDaniels waited all this time for his next shot, and it lasted 9 weeks.
Well, do you expect to wake up and Nate Hackett to have a job?
You know, it's funny. I hadn't thought about that one.
They scored 10 points today. They lost to the Titans, who had a million injuries.
No reason really to keep him around, I guess. Right?
I mean, they're not going to the playoffs.
I don't really know what you gain by. No, I don't think he makes it through the season. Maybe that's the short answer. Then you can just start your search, I guess. I don't know. It's college. It's not college. It's the NFL.
Does it feel like hard? I mean, it's going to be hard for Harbaugh to not have a job next year if he wants one in the NFL, right?
Well, the Colts, the Raiders,
Denver. Like if I just paid all this money for the Denver Broncos, if I just paid all this money for Denver Broncos, it goes, who are you interviewing? They'd be like, well, this coordinator, and I got Gutsy over here, and I got, Sirianni's guy over here, and one of Kyle's minions, and you're like, how about that fucking guy, Jim Harbaugh? Someone just forwarded me. He went 49-23 when he coached the Niners. I'm watching this Michigan team the last couple of years, kicking the shit out of everybody. How about we interview that guy? Well, I got Gutsy from Kevin O'Connell's guy over here. He's an analytical forward thinker. He's 27 years old.
Gutsy a nickname in this?
No, that's the
Goody and Gutsy.
That was the Bears hired the dude from the Packers. They all feel like the same.
Parks and Rec.
Yeah, Parks Frazier. I got this guy. He played quarterback at Samford. He's been coming up the Shanahan way, and then he worked for Gruden. It's like, how about just hire this guy?
Yeah, because it doesn't feel like Sean Payton would want to coach Russ, but I don't think Jim would give it. Jim does not care. Jim will coach anybody, I think, at quarterback.
Totally agree.
And it might actually not be the worst thing for Russ.